What's up, everybody? This is Karak with ACG, and welcome to my third video covering E3 2016. Today is going to be covering Microsoft's conference, and they did announce a bunch of stuff, so it's going to be interesting to sort of look at what they've announced and see how gamers are going to react to that as we move forward. We're just going to jump straight into it, as always, and I always want to start by saying thanks to everybody who's spread the news of the channel, spread the news of the reviews, who even just takes a second to watch something like this when it's not a review, because as you guys know, reviews cost money because, well, I usually have to buy the title. So when it comes down to it, little videos like this actually really help me out. The first thing I want to talk about is the announcement of the Slim. So basically the Xbox S, which is HDR capable, which is awesome, output to your TV, as well as having 4K support for videos and streaming. And it's basically a disc reader, 4K disc player, ultimate Blu-ray player kind of thing. I have to say, it's sweet. They shrunk it down. And I think we're seeing sort of that typical Microsoft where they sort of figure something out and they try to alleviate some of the problems that we had in the past. The original Xbox One was big and bulky, and the reason why it was so large and had so much airflow in it was, of course, because they were reacting to the issues they had with the Xbox 360. And now it's obvious that they've went ahead and they've found what they can get away with when it comes to heat dissipation and how robust these things are, and put it all together into a smaller package at a very good price. $299 is not a bad price. Now, we'll cover in the future in this video why maybe some people might not want to pay for that right now, but we'll cover it in a second. It does not come with a controller. $299 does not come with a controller, which was really surprising to me for various reasons, but I think one of those reasons is because the new controller is most likely going to be a little bit more expensive, and Xbox didn't want to put that into the system, but I'm not really a big fan of announcing that system without a controller. On the other hand, there are rumors that there are going to be a bunch of third-party Xbox 360 or Xbox One controller companies out there releasing new controllers, not just like the customs, but releasing like de facto controllers, which might be good, because it's one of the things that I think as a gamer I notice sometimes is that, I can only get one or two different types of Xbox One controller, and they're really just they're some company out there that custom skin and stuff like that. So we'll see if that's all true. The Slim looks awesome. HDR compatibility is great. That is awesome to have that output into your TV. That actually, as we move forward into gaming, this future that I think we're all seeing, one of the really cool things is seeing these small adjustments where no one really expected them. It's not video card numbers, right? It's not these graphics numbers that you can tangibly put a handhold on. It's little things like G-Sync, which a lot of people didn't realize just how big of a deal G-Sync was until, boom, it's in NVIDIA cards and it's working with monitors, and you see it and you're like, holy shit, this is a game changer. So they just talked a lot about achievement popping on different systems. The iPad, you can have an achievement pop up on the iPad. You can do all this stuff cross-platform play, which is pretty cool for some people out there who want to have one centralized system. For me, it wasn't that big of a deal, but I know that a lot of people are asking for that. I'm not an achievement hunter. I'm not somebody who plays a game on one system and goes, oh, darn, I'm not going to get the achievement on that system. But a lot of people are, so I think that that's very cool. Also, let's be honest, buying one game and getting another version is totally awesome, because you might have one person who wants to play on the Xbox one person who wants to play on the PC. So that's great stuff. And then they showed Gears of War 4. Now, I'm just going to be brutally honest. I'm not really incredibly stoked about the Gears of War footage we've seen so far. Gears of War is Gears of War, right? Gears of War, if it changed, wouldn't even be Gears of War anymore, because this is an unchanging fictional state when you really look at it. It's an unchanging world. Sure, there's battle lines being drawn and there's little things happening, but it really is a typical old-style yarn about characters in a never-ending battle. And so if anything really changed, it'd be odd, but some of the things that we notice now that maybe we didn't notice when the original Gears of War titles were releasing are things like where they were in this organic area with like creatures of some kind, and the bugs had walls had bugs. So the bug had become a wall that you could hide behind, right? It's that typical sort of strange pop and stop style gameplay that they're like, hey, you know what, we don't want to have a wall here, let's have them go into this organic creature's nest, and oh, it'll be an egg sack. That when I watched the gameplay, I wasn't that interested until they showed the weather effects. People are going to be making YouTubes about this for years, but basically there's this one level with a huge friggin' storm, massive and amazing effects, like creatures leaning into the wind or away from the wind as it's blowing them down, guys dying and sort of flying off because of this tornado. Very cool storm effects, lots of particles. That was the thing about Gears of War 4. I think above anything else, Gears of War 4 looked like Gears of War. Its textures had been increased in some places and so forth. But what really nailed it for me was the effects. They put effects on everything. It was just laden with effects. And I'm one of those type of people that believes that, you know, a game can look good in various ways. It can look good in its texture use. It can look good in its animation. It can look good in its modeling or its architecture. But it can also look good just because they slather a shit ton of special effects on this thing, right? And that's sort of the way it was. Now, you may look at it and go, well, then that's just a Michael Bay of video games. It already was, so I think anybody surprised by that or arbitrarily angered by this, you know, overabundance of special effects and stuff, that's really not, it's neither here nor there. Very, very much enjoyed the trailer at the end, but the previous stuff before the storm, not that interested in. They do have crossplay, which is cool, and they have co-op crossplay for everything. So you can do the new Horde mode, you can do all this stuff, PC, Xbox One. It was weird because they said co-op multiplayer, but they didn't say single player multiplayer, like deathmatch style. So I'm wondering if they're allowing the co-op because, you know, you've got somebody on your team who maybe has a keyboard so they can keep up, and that when you do the full deathmatch, it is, you have to play against your own groups because there is that, not only a skill, but an actual hardware difference with a mouse and keyboard. So I'm going to have to look into that and find out exactly why they sort of continued to say the co-op part of it was cross-play like that, even the multiplayer, but normal multiplayer wouldn't be. And then Forza Horizon. Man, for the Forza games surprised me because I was into them and then sort of got bored of them or got away from them. And yet this last Forza really ignited my passion for racing games, really got me back into racing. And Forza Horizon, the original, just looked awesome. This new one though, it looks amazing. They showed it on various different configurations back and forth. And yes, you can see some Xbox One graphics in there as well, and it looks really good. The PC version, of course, looks amazing at 4K. They were showing it running at 4K on a 1080 NVIDIA, which was awesome. But you look at this game, and Forza Horizon has always been really, to me, that Test Drive Unlimited sort of Microsoft's version of it, right? And so to play it and experience it, Test Drive, or to play Forza Horizon the first time, was really stoked, really excited. This somehow excited me again, and I did not think that was going to happen, but they showed video of them racing, and that was the thing about Microsoft that they have some CGI. There was a couple places where I didn't like it, but the fact is they sort of brought their game when it came to games. They were like, here are the games, and we're going to show you some stuff. It was pretty nice, really. And you see Forza, and you see these people racing their cars full speed, Lamborghinis against freaking dune buggies and all this stuff, and you're just like, that actually looks like it would be fun. Additionally, they added in 4-player co-op, which was cool. So you can do the full campaign in co-op, you can join up with your friends, you can do all this stuff. And that sort of mends in with some of the other stuff they were announcing that I'm going to get to in a second. It's set in Australia. So, you know, Test Drive Unlimited set in Hawaii. This is set in Australia. I sort of like the sectioning off and saying, hey, it's set in this one area so we can contain it without any fake borders, unless it's the ocean, and say, go for it. Say, just, you know, drive. So it's going to be really interesting to see how big this area is that you can race and how spread it is and if it's truncated when it comes to going from one place to the other. It will be in some form, but I'd like it to be extra long if possible because I really enjoyed some of those aspects of the crew, and I know that some of the Forza Horizon devs are actually very big fans of the crew, especially that secondary expansion that came out. So that'll be cool to see. It's going to be interesting, but I'm not 100% sure it's going to be for everybody. I think it'll bring some people in who want to play those style of racing games, but it's not that clinical aspect like an original Forza is, which is the same thing that Forza Horizon originally had to fight against. And then ReCore, they showed ReCore. I'm just going to be brutally honest, guys. I'm not a big fan of that game. I'm not a fan of its look. It looks like everything was pissed on. It's got a very nasty orange yellow aesthetic to it that just does not speak to me. I am not a fan of that dirt and orange. Like, something about it just looks off, and I've never been a fan of its look. They showed some gameplay which looked a little bit interesting, but right now, by far, just the least interested I could be in a title is ReCore, and I don't know why. It's just not for me right now. Now, that could change. A lot of titles, I can tell you right now, I was like, what is this? Dragon's Dogma. What is this friggin' thing? It makes no sense. And then within, you know, a couple weeks, I was like, this is the best game ever. So it can happen. Then the Division Underground expansion. It is exclusive for a while, and it comes out on June 28th for the Xbox One. This is really cool. There's some bits of this that I actually like. You know, I go back to the Division. Cadiz and I are going to go back for the weekly Warrior segment a couple times. It's going to add random missions, which will be cool, and I don't think it's going to go overboard, by the way. So let me say that before people freak out and the comments get filled up with, "Oh my God, we've got Skyrim missions." It doesn't sound like that. From what I've been hearing, it's that they have the occasional like random mission interspersed that sort of keeps you going between longer areas. Like if you're traveling from one end or the other, there's a couple random missions, new ones and stuff like that. So we'll see if it's just flooded with these new random missions or not. But it's the underground, and it looks like it's just all the sewers and the subways and intense battles. I think that'd be cool for the Division, because the Division is much sort of much aligned. It's one of those games that where people liked it and then it sort of started to fall to the wayside, and now we're starting to see a lot of people who are like, I haven't turned it on in a while. It's got a Destiny vibe to it. I think people may return to the Division to check it out here. Xbox One exclusive for timed exclusive for a little while. And then so the little things that they added, which I know this sounds dumb, but it might be the most exciting announcement of this conference besides one thing: background music. Background music, since the original Xbox, was my shit. I just absolutely loved background music. Now, for people who want to know what that is, basically what it does is it allows you to play any kind of background music you want while you're playing a game. So, for example, at the time, I think it was Rob Zombie or something like that, I would play a test drive game, and we'd have some Rob Zombie cranking in through a fake radio, and you're just cruising, and it was so friggin' awesome. It was just amazing. Now, of course, YouTubers like myself will have to watch out and not get copyright strikes. We'll have to turn the music down when we're playing games online and streaming and stuff. But the ability to do background music, stupidly enough, is one of the most top 3 requested features of the Xbox One in these new systems. So I'm happy to see that being added in. They also added, and I was mentioning a little bit about this when I was talking about Forza Horizon, they added in Xbox Clubs. Xbox Clubs really isn't too special. PlayStation has the communities feature. Everybody's trying to find some way to sort of get people together. But Clubs is an app. And I think that that's one place where Xbox is sort of smartening up. They're making things apps. Now, a lot of people might be like, I don't like that idea, or why would that be better? Well, because you're not really going to a web forum and reading stuff. You're going to an app, and you're able to load it, snap it, do things within it, and have it just jump back and forth fairly easily without going into some other location. And checking it out and seeing what it can do and how it can speak to other apps in your Xbox library is very cool. So you might be able to do some pretty cool stuff with that. We'll have to see in the future what they're going to talk about. I can't talk about some of the stuff that I've been told will be able to be possible with that, but in the future, I think Xbox Clubs will be a nice place to maybe make a ACG club that everybody can go and just that'll be the place where we discuss games and where we play games together with the community and the patrons and stuff. Nice system, but sort of up in the air. And then looking for group app, they were big on this, but I guess I can see why. You're able to do, it's almost like Clubs, and it's sort of interactive, but you can look for a group to play a game, which is cool. You can do that anywhere. It's almost like a raid app for your Xbox One for any game, and your PC, by the way. Anything running Windows 10 will do it as well. And you're able to look for a group for any game in these looking for group search parameters, which is really cool. So if you were playing pretty much any game in the world, as long as you can play it on those systems, you can say, hey, I'm looking for this game. I'm looking for people to join me on Destiny, Red Dead co-op on the Xbox 360. I'm assuming that'd even work. So interesting, but not necessarily something that's mind-blowing. And then Arena on Xbox Live. Now, okay, so I don't know. I'm not really into the competitive spirit of video games in that way. I used to play competitive Halo and did okay, but I was never really into that, hey, let's all get together and pretend we're sports stars kind of things. And so, you're getting your jock and my nerd kind of situation. And we have this issue where basically Microsoft is saying, hey, we're going to create these arenas. What it is it's an app. It's an arena on your Xbox One or your PC where you're able to join competitive markets and play games. You're able to join, so all those other competitive groups, you're able to join them without having to use other apps. Now, that part is cool. Basically, what that means is as long as you've got all your profile on your Xbox One, you should be able to jump into a lot of these competitive ladder matches on different games and say, boom, I want to play. You don't have to sign in. It sucks that data back into your Xbox, your PC, whatever, and sort of create your profile for you, and you move forward. In many ways, it reminds me of Xbox, the Achievements app that you can get for the Xbox, True Achievements that you can get for the Xbox, which if you haven't had a chance, True Achievements is ridiculously awesome for the Xbox One, PS4, and Steam. Actually, it does them all. So that was cool, but it was one of those situations where as they were talking, I was like, this is also not for me. And that's sort of how I felt with EA, and I felt with, with Bethesda. I think this is going to be normal for this entire E3 because we're going through some changes, which I'm going to talk about in a bit. But I think that anybody who expects one giant awesome conference is probably going to find that these conferences may disappoint them, because I really do believe that these companies behind the scenes are fighting a 50-50 battle. And there's a reason why I say that, and I'll get to it in a second. Minecraft in VR. They brought John Carmack out and they were like, hey, wear this VR system and play Minecraft. Now, we see a lot of hints. We already know that Rift in VR and stuff like that are already pretty much in bed with Microsoft, even though Microsoft says we don't have any special deals yet, that kind of thing. I'll get to it later. They obviously have some kind of deal because there's some announcements coming up. When it comes down to it, you saw him playing around in Minecraft VR. They were doing different things in Minecraft VR. They were announcing that, you have crossplay, you have Android, you have all these different abilities for people to jump in and out of everybody's games, which is cool. And I wasn't a fan of the Minecraft VR, but, we'll get to that later. I didn't really think it worked so well. In fact, it actually made me a little bit sick. It's one of the few games where I don't think that movement is just done that well. But a lot of people are digging it. A lot of people like Minecraft. They did say mods for Minecraft will be in 2017. So that's cool for the console, by the way. I'm sorry. So that means anybody who's playing the console version of Minecraft and wants mods, 2017, they are adding that ability for anybody who has Minecraft on the consoles and wants to do mods. And that doesn't include texture packs, which will also be available. Actually, I think they're already working. I could be wrong on that. And then, so they showed Inside Xbox. So here's the problem. They showed Inside Xbox. Now, Inside Xbox is like their indie group. The problem with Microsoft, and the problem at times with Sony, is many times they're trying to show too much. And what you do is you get this situation where you're watching it going, wait, what was that game? Or I'd like to see a little bit more of that game. And they show those snippets, right? And do you know what I wish? I wish they would cut out some of these other things that are, a year or two down the road or whatever, even though Microsoft doesn't have many of those, and put in those indies and allow for a little bit longer snippet, even if it's more cuts of that same game. So I'm not saying we have to have one long gameplay element, because I think that would be ultimately boring for the watcher. But if you could have this situation, this sort of eclectic series of cuts for whatever game that you were wanting to look at that time, I envision this a little bit longer, a little bit more to digest kind of clip for people who are interested in the indie games that Microsoft has, because Microsoft is showing quite a few. You guys have seen the different developers that we've met. We've met at least two, the Ashen developers as well as the Everspace developers. Those are both Microsoft. So they've got a lot of different little indie games on there that looked very cool. If you get a chance, if I don't have it in the background here, if I can't find the footage, then you'll definitely want to go online and check it out. And then We Happy Few. Now, this one was crazy. Microsoft had them on screen playing a good deal of We Happy Few, which was really, really cool. We Happy Few is one of those creepy vibe, futuristic, everybody's controlled style worlds, and the main character basically doesn't get his medication and suddenly figures out what's going on. It reminds me of the Christian Bale movie. I can't remember the name, but where he sort of comes off his meds. And you have that situation, and it was creepy as hell. They were sitting there beating a piñata and at a party, and he hadn't taken his meds. And when the piñata broke and everybody was eating the candy, he sort of flashed, and he saw what it really was, and it was a dead rat, and they were eating its insides, and they're all controlled by this government. A lot of it reminds me of V, the movie V for Vendetta. So that's, whatever it is. It's interesting. It's a unique style game. I don't know what exactly is going to happen or what the gameplay style is going to be. I've touched it, played it for 15 minutes, touched on its stories a couple times here, but I don't really want to speak too much about it because that game always feels like it's in a big flux. It always feels like it's never really solidified what it's going to be as we move forward. But it was cool. But Microsoft was like, hey, you guys can have the main stage and go for it and just put on your jester outfit and perform for the crowds, and that was awesome.
Right.
And then they moved on to Tekken versus Street Fighter. Yeah, whatever. Like, they showed some of it. They said that it was going to have seamless cutscene to gameplay narrative, which will be cool. They did show a little bit of that, and it did look cool. I'm not saying it didn't. But it's sort of one of those situations where when you get in the middle of your conference, Tekken versus Street Fighter, Tekken not really super popular anymore, and Street Fighter with all of its issues, it's sort of like, congratulations, look at us. We've got a title that almost nobody wants. So it's one of those situations where I like it, and I will play it. And I think that that's cool because I like fighting games and I'll support it. But it was really weird to be in the center of Microsoft's event. Like, when you watched it, you're all, okay, this is happening right now. And then moving on, they showed, so this is the problem. A lot of this stuff was leaked, so I'm probably repeating some stuff. But basically, they showed Dead Rising 4. Now, they said, they did not say exclusive to PC and Xbox One, and I'll get to that in a second. What they said was on Xbox One and on PC. Dead Rising 4 looks awesome. The return of Frank West just looks phenomenal. The stuff he was doing, the different actions, we've seen some of these leaks. Dead Rising is one of my favorite games of all time. It really did probably solidify my desire to go with the Xbox 360 more than anything back when that was created, because when I saw that, I had them both, but when I saw it, I was all, oh man, and I sort of, that was one of the first games that made me really look and go, man, that is sweet. I love the title. I'm excited to see it, and it's coming out this winter, so it's not too far away. I love that they started out with freaking Christmas music, and it just shows him beating the shit out of people with all the snow and everything. Really cool. Dialed in that atmosphere really well. And then Scalebound, and I'm not interested. Scalebound is like, the Dragons, the Platinum games. It just... They showed people running around. They had, my personal belief is, continually talking protagonists are the, move gesture features of this year's E3 that everybody's talking about, or everybody has. Every game seems to have this protagonist that can't shut the fuck up, just continually. And I mean continually. This character did not shut up the entire time, just constantly talking. And it was weird because you're playing this action game, and sometimes the action would have a lull and he'd be talking, and then when it was busy, he'd be talking, and then when it was between, he'd be talking. And Gears 4 did the same thing, where Laura Bailey's character talked through the entire game as they were playing it. So it was a little bit bothersome to see, but I really just don't see that it showed anything amazing. They showed a big boss battle, and they showed some cool stuff going on, but it didn't feel like it had any magic to it. And that was unfortunate, and it could have just been me, but I saw a lot of people online that I was talking to who were like, this is just not doing it for me. And then he put on his earphones, his cans, and the music starts, and I think that adds a stat of some kind. I think it like increases his speed or something, because it certainly did look like he was moving differently. So that could be a unique gameplay element that, of course, makes no sense at all, but would still be fun to, check out. And then Sea of Thieves. So Sea of Thieves really makes me, as a YouTuber, sort of embarrassed for YouTubers, because some of these, they had YouTubers playing Sea of Thieves, and I felt bad because I know what a bad cut is. A bad cut is basically when you say something on camera and somebody takes a snippet and says, this is proof of this, right? This is saying that Karak believes this because you take one snippet. I could say, I absolutely do not like sea lions. And somebody could, cut some things, and I like sea lions. You just cut a couple things out. Well, that's what happened. They basically cut a bunch of stuff out. And so you have these YouTubers going, and screaming the entire time. And people, including myself, were like, oh my God, remove them, please. Microsoft, you're making everybody look bad. And it did. And I know a couple of those guys, at least from videos and stuff like that, and they're not that way in real life. They are somewhat, but they're not that bad. And it was one of those situations where Microsoft was trying to say, this is action-packed, when what they showed gameplay-wise was awesome. And that's the problem. They showed everybody having to work as a team together and unfurl sails, and the captain's like, hey, I can't actually see through the sails, so somebody has to yell to me where to go. And then they were trying to get through this, this rocky crag with the ship, and they were like, we should just go. No, let's turn around. No, just go. And I was all, that could be a blast with like 4 or 5 of your friends. That could be so fun. Crossplay, of course, and all that stuff available. It looks good. I love it. It's got awesome water, as everybody says. They even said it in the thing. Great water. It just looks phenomenal. Most likely, as I've stated before in past podcasts, most likely rendered by the cloud. So you have this really cool looking game that I think speaks to a very particular certain group of people. It's not just a pirate MMO, and it's not just an MMO. It's a cartoony pirate MMO. And when I talk about this, sometimes I talk about how you sort of end up slimming down that audience that you're trying to release a title to. This one doesn't broaden like a Rare title may. A Rare title seems to broaden the audience, where the audience sees a Rare title and there's something about the captivating art as well as some gameplay. And these are older Rare titles where this would happen. And it would open it to people who, like myself maybe, originally weren't fans of that. What you have here is there's nothing there that really opens up more fandom. It just sort of closes it down. It says, oh, it's too cartoony. Okay. Oh, it's an MMO. Okay. Oh, it's pirates. Okay. And now you have your audience. And that's unfortunate, and I hope as we move forward, we see some stuff from there that sort of alleviates that problem. And then the next thing is State of Decay 2. Probably, I knew it was coming, but what they showed, co-op, single-player co-op, or story co-op campaign, and building of forts, and just everything I wanted in State of Decay 1 that, the 360 and then later the PC just couldn't do because the PC was running on, even the upgraded engine just wasn't capable of it. State of Decay, original State of Decay, was one of those games that as more and more systems sort of boil up, you're just more and more surprised what they offer. Every single time you go into a game, you guys have heard me talk about this game forever. Every single time you played that game, some new system popped up that you could use and do something with. And it was so extraordinarily deep. Unfortunately, it was hid behind a lot of technical issues, like a frame rate that was absolutely preteen. Like, this frame rate was terrible. So we're going to see State of Decay 2, Xbox One, multi-threaded, which is what one of the original problems with the original State of Decay was that it had an issue spreading its work across multiple threads. Now you have, the Xbox One, which has far more CPU cores and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to see how that comes across on the Xbox One and the PC. But State of Decay 2, I'm telling you guys, that is a game you need to watch out for. Yes, it's a zombie game, but to me, it's the premier by a just giant landslide when it comes to overall gameplay. And I'm hoping that gets its way into, infects State of Decay 2. Halo Wars 2, that's the next one. A lot of sequels. Halo Wars 2, they showed it. A lot of people are fans of Halo Wars. And what they showed was an RTS in Halo. So there's not much to say. The beta starts right now. So if you have an Xbox One or a PC, go, download it, start playing the beta, and tell me what you think. What I saw was an RTS based in Halo. I am a fan of RTS games, but they have to be a very particular type for me to really get into, and they have to offer a certain amount of strategy and stuff like that, and Halo never really grabbed me as an RTS-ready title. Doesn't mean it's not awesome. I did enjoy Halo Wars, just not as much as many other people, apparently. And then the last thing they announced, there's some stuff I've missed here, but the last thing they've announced, and the biggest, I would say the largest announcement at E3 so far, and for sure for Microsoft, was the Scorpio, which is the next Xbox. Basically, what they did was, we've already known that this has sort of been out there, so I want to make sure that a lot of people understand that this has sort of been leaked multiple times. There's some people in the dev community who've talked about it a little bit and let it leak and hinted. But we got the firm numbers, which the firm numbers turned out to be the real numbers pretty much. But what you're looking at is a 8-core, 6 teraflop, 320 gigabyte memory bandwidth, 4K VR gaming system, backwards and forwards compatibility, released in 2017. What does that mean, though? Well, AMD recently released their VR-capable video card. And it's coming out, actually they announced it's coming out in a little bit of time, and it's very cheap. It's not expensive at all compared to what you would expect. I think it's $199. Well, looking at these numbers, sort of crunching some numbers, you find out that this is pretty much a variant of that, if it's not exactly that. But you have these new AMD cards that are highly powerful. Let's look at the 970 GTX, or the GTX 1070, I'm sorry. Very powerful, $379 manufacturer's price, I think, if I remember right. Then you look at wholesale, then you look at a company ordering, 100,000, whatever. Well, AMDs are even cheaper. And what they've got is a very powerful card, very powerful APU, very powerful CPU, and they're putting it all together and they're making the Scorpio. They even called it the Project Scorpio. If you guys remember in my podcast a couple weeks ago, I was like, you know what? I wish they would just stick with their code name. Apparently, Microsoft listens to this podcast. Just joking. So the Project Scorpio, what will it do? Well, they've said a couple things. It's going to have HDR, which is awesome. Super stoked for that. Of course, it'll be 4K for video, all that kind of stuff. What you're looking at when it comes to graphics rendering power, they have been stating, they were very, very clear, 4K native output for games. Now, what does that mean? Well, when you look at a 970 or you look at some other graphics cards that are close to this, that are paired with CPUs that we are guessing are close to this, you look at a situation where there's a very good chance they can hit 4K native, but we're not sure about the frame rate. 4K is a lot of pixels to push. It is a ton of pixels to push. Now, if you have a 1080 screen, what does that mean for you? Most likely, it will not downsample or truly downsample like a PC. It'll most likely just render out to 1080p, and you won't see an increase in anti-aliasing or anything like that that you would see in a 4K downsampled footage. It may, who knows, right? These are actually CPUs and GPUs pretty much that are in some people's PCs. That software exists to do anti-aliasing, so it's possible. But we're already seeing these switches. Homefront Revolution allows for temporal anti-aliasing to be turned on. Some games allow for unlocked and locked frame rates. We've already seen this. This is something that we already knew was happening because some developers have already put in some unique options that we've discussed even just recently in podcasts where we're like, hey, look, this option's in this console game, which is really strange. So what we get is this hyper-powerful system, the Scorpio, which natively is supposed to output at 4K. We know that it will output at 4K regardless, that's for sure. But native just means that the game will have to be developed for 4K at 30 or 4K at 60 frames. That's all it means. So it means that the resources within the title will have to be prepared for that title to hit whatever frame rate and resolution the company wants. That's sort of how you say it's 4K native. It doesn't mean that it will look like, our best brand new games like The Division. Let's say you grab The Division. Will it run 4K native, The Division? Probably, but here's the difference. Your options will change. I think it is high time that we all sit down and sort of understand that we have to start being truthful with some things, and we can't just blurt out, this can't do 4K. Well, guess what? The fucking Xbox One can do 4K right away if it needed to. The game wouldn't look very good, right? The resources would be poor. There wouldn't be a lot of texture detail. That's what happens. This is the same thing that happens in PC games when you turn down your options so you can up your resolution. Pretending to be stupid and pretending to not understand that is just, I think it really does cause the entire conversation to sort of take a step back. So same thing will happen with the Neo. The Neo will come out and they will say whatever that they think that they can hit. They'll probably say the same thing, 4K native, so-and-so. Now, the rumor is, and all these rumors have been right so far, is that the Neo is at about 4 teraflops, while the Xbox One number 2, or the Scorpio, is going to be at 6+ for its teraflops. What does that mean, really? Well, who knows? It really means that basically a developer, just like the Xbox One and PS4, is going to have the option of maybe a unique style of anti-aliasing or some higher texture detail. We see this already, so anybody saying it can't happen doesn't really understand it's already happening. It's just there will be a broader gulf, possibly, and it may not even pop up. We'll have to see. But what we're looking at is Xbox One and PS4 sort of becoming the 1080p machines, and the Neo and the Xbox Scorpius becoming the 4K and 1080p machines moving forward. I think when it comes down to it, really depends on how this backwards and forward capability works in these systems, because Neo is going to do it as well. If it's completely backwards compatible, which I don't think anybody here questions that it will be, because of course this is X64. It's not, the old style PowerPC style Xbox 360 where it becomes difficult. You're going to basically have lesser hardware in that smaller system. It really does allow for you to step forward and move forward. I don't like it because it does make you feel that they won't worry about optimization and understanding the very little intricacies for the PS4 or the Xbox One, because the PS4 and Xbox One, when you talk to devs, there's little issues here and there. There always is, right? There's always little issues. Well, unfortunately, what we see with unoptimized PC games, for instance, is the idea that everybody can throw more power at it. It's like whenever I hear somebody say they have a 980 Ti or something, they're like, the game runs fine for me, so it should run fine for everybody. That's completely false. That makes no sense whatsoever. Different architectures, different, driver versions. There's all these different little things that can pop up. It's completely unrealistic to say that. So that's one of the reasons why I test on 3 different machines, so I can get you guys a good overall idea of what we've got going on. When it comes to the Scorpio, the one nice thing is we're basically just getting one extra system. The developers will be able to develop for that system, but they will have to make the Xbox One games work. And they'll have to make the Scorpio games work. I keep wanting to call it like something else. I don't know what exactly, but I want to change that name. What are we going to see? Who knows? I think that we're looking at a price point that won't be as shocking as people assume, because it is an AMD card, and AMD has already shown that the cards, when bought single, are going to be about $200. On wholesale, they're going to be a lot less. So we have a situation where these cards are going to be fairly cheap. It looks like Xbox and PS4, or Xbox and Sony both went with the same overall upgrade. It's just that Xbox went with a far larger, different settings to go larger. And we'll see how it goes. It's one of those situations where no one will have an answer until 2017. And they've got the Xbox Slim, which does HDR, and is smaller, and they've got the Xbox One, and they have decided that they're going to move forward in this iterative manner. And unfortunately, both consoles are. So if you don't like what Microsoft's doing, you de facto probably don't like what Sony's doing. And it's one of those situations where you have to decide, do you jump from this kind of iterative model to the PC, which is not only iterative, it's iterative in every single component. See, that's one of the things. A lot of times you'll hear people say, like some of my friends will be all, I'm just going to PC. I'll be all, you do realize that everything's iterative there. And oh, okay, yeah, you're right. I'll just stick with this. You know, the difference I think here is that you buy one of these boxes and it just does what it's supposed to. And you don't have to worry about anything else for the most part. That's probably its big plus right now. And, you know, we're moving into a future which I think a lot of gamers are going to have issues sort of understanding and coming to grips with how their consoles are now like their TVs, or I'm sorry, their telephones or their tablets. You know, I have 3 different Android devices with the Tegra NVIDIA chip. The 1, the 2, and I think a 4. I have the most powerful one as well. I can't remember which. And you have this situation where you can run the game. I'll get a game that says it's compatible with all of them. But if I run it on that original, oh man, it's terrible. The one positive we have with the Xbox One and the PS4 is that they're run by Microsoft and Sony, who are going to require that they probably perform the way they do now. Now, that means, let's hope it's not like Homefront Revolution where you get 9 frames per second. But I think what we will be seeing is a general dumbing down for the Xbox One and the PS4 when it comes to VR titles or when it comes to just the games that work on both. And it's going to be interesting. You know, as we move forward, it's going to be super interesting. I think all of us have a lot of growing to do, because if you're not into this, there's not a lot of places to go except for Nintendo, and they haven't said anything. And then lastly, Fallout 4 will be on the Xbox Scorpio as VR. It was Todd Howard was doing the interview that when they were announcing the Scorpio, and he basically sort of stated it in a roundabout way, where he's like, you know, for us to be able to do our VR on this machine, blah, blah, blah. And so you're like, oh, okay. Which we probably already assumed because the PSVR is out, and Xbox and Oculus, as I said before, have this sandwiching of desires, I think. So most likely the Scorpio will be in some way, and I think I called it Scorpius, I'm sorry. Scorpio in some way will be updated, have some, maybe a different, you know, cable wiring harness you plug in the back, and it runs the Rift, and you'll be able to play VR games, and for sure Fallout 4, because they basically stated that. So as a whole, I would say it was a good conference, and it had less of a downtime for an entire segment like EA's did with sports. EA was like, boom, sports. And you were like, okay, I have nothing to talk about at this moment because I don't like sports. I wasn't, but many people were. In Microsoft's, there was just different little moments. There was, if you didn't pay attention, you might miss the indie kind of game. If you didn't pay attention here, you might miss your Gears, if you like Gears. If you didn't pay attention here, you might miss, you know, some the We Happy Few, something like that. And of course, at the end, you would miss the launch or the announcement of a launch of this new console. So I think I would just say that, if, you know, as a score, I'd give this probably a B+, which is weird because we've gone B-, B, and B+. But yeah, I would say this is a B+. To me, if somebody wants to know how I would require this to be an A, if they showed a couple games running on both systems, the Xbox One and the Scorpio, I would be interested more so. If they showed a couple unique exclusives that were beyond Dead Rising 3, I would be probably at an A. And if they had done Crackdown 3, which the rumor is Crackdown 3 has been not delayed, but Crackdown 3 has been shifted over to full-on Scorpio development without the cloud. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but that is the rumor going around, that Microsoft will still absolutely have the cloud, and they already have some games that are going to definitely be using it. Sea of Thieves, that water, but they are looking at least at Crackdown 3 being able to handle all those physics on the card that's coming out on the new system. So it might be Xbox One original has to use the cloud, and Xbox Scorpio does not. We'll see. So anyway, I hope you guys liked it. This was a lot longer. I apologize, but this is a longer conference. There's a lot to discuss, a lot of little ideas that could possibly pop up, and I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood my part before I moved on. So as always, I appreciate you guys watching. Share it if you can. Tweet it if you can. If you liked it, thumbs up. If you disliked it, thumbs down. And peace out.